Thank you. Thank you. I wish I had said that earlier when we were doing our elevator pitch. Did you guys get a heads up, by the way? Because you were awesome, all of you. I wish I'd had some practice, but maybe I can speak to you, Kim, after session and get a few tips. But also, you guys are awesome. Like, just chatting to you there before the start of this and hearing how you've adapted your businesses through COVID and how you're going about business through what has been an incredibly challenging period in time. And I just say, like, good on you all. Rachel, hearing your story there, and I just can't even begin to imagine how stressful it must have been there at some point through this year. So, I think we've all been through a wild ride these last 12 months. I know I have. But here we are. I'm Rachel. Thanks for the intro there. And welcome to everyone who's joining us online. Thanks for getting involved. Basically, we're here tonight, well, I'm here tonight, and we're all here to learn about creating engaging content. I think this is probably the biggest question I get asked. Everyone wants to know how to write an awesome post, I think the sub question, if we're honest with ourselves, is, how to get millions of likes, how to get all those followers, how to, magically transform our businesses through content. Would that be fair? You don't have to put your hand up or anything, but I think that's the subtext to what we're really trying to unpack. And thank you for your honesty. The secret kind of is, there is no magic formula to this. I wish I could give you a 2-minute kind of guide to how to do that. What is true to say is there are principles that apply that will make your content more engaging. And so we're going to explore one of those tonight, and that's how to be a bit more transparent. So how to get real, and through that, how to kind of create more trust and more connection with the people who are following us. So it's going to hopefully be a bit fun. There's pens, there's paper. If you're joining us online, please, get a pen and paper or have your phone handy. There's a little bit of an activity involved, but before we get to that, we're just going to kind of explore more around this whole idea of engaging content, what it is, maybe, look at a few myths that maybe you've heard along the way. So, sorry, I don't have it. Thank you. So here's the thing, even some of the best content creators out there get it wrong and get it right. Gary Vee, for example, he's considered one of the digital marketing gurus of our time. Maybe you've heard of him. But, if you go to his LinkedIn page, sometimes he gets 3,000 likes, sometimes he gets 300 likes, sometimes he hardly gets any at all. So, it's just the way it is. You're probably not going to nail it every single time. Not even the best guys do that. So I guess take some comfort in that. Some content is remarkable, some is probably not that remarkable. That being said, of course, we want to set our sights on being awesome. But to me, I guess the question really is, not what content is going to get the most likes and what's going to get me followers, but I think a better question to ask might be, what content can I create to more consistently connect with my social media community? Because if we think of it this way, we start from a position of wanting to understand where our audience is at, and what they want from us. We start to appreciate that content creation is really a story, and so it's about consistency, it's about practice, and it's about connection, and it's about, learning, taking a leap sometimes and trying some new things and working out through that, what works and what doesn't. So yeah, I'm sorry to break it to you if that's the first time you've heard it. There is no simple formula to getting millions of likes and millions of followers, but nor should that necessarily be your goal. I'd suggest that a far better goal is to look at this as an opportunity to create connection and trust. So yeah, we're going to have a little look and a chat about this transparency idea. And in my preparation for tonight, I found this it's a really awesome book. It's by a guy named Todd Caponi. If this was a podcast, I'd put that in the show notes, but I guess we can probably share that, somehow in socials or something rather. In essence, it's a book about sales, but he takes a completely different angle to it, and he looks at this transparency, and it starts off with this research that was done into how people respond, I guess, to customer reviews. So, like Google, for example, where you go onto Google and you look at, how many 5-star reviews did a restaurant get, or, whatever it might be. And so there was this research that was done into it. And the outcome is possibly not what you might expect. So we're going to have a crack at this audio play, right? I think I need to count down. So we're going to try it, because I think we need to do a 3, 2, 1, play.
Work, be a trusted advisor, and nurture relationships. So I couldn't help thinking, surely sales, which has always been a trusted advisor and nurture relationships. So I couldn't help thinking, surely sales, which has always been highly dependent on personal relationships, could never be reduced to mere reviews. This question drove me to spend the next year exploring the shifting evolution of how to sell effectively in a world filled with on-demand reviews. It led me to uncover one startling truth that drove me to write this book. To understand this truth, we should start with a quick review of some interesting research into how consumers research and buy the things they need online today. According to research, 95% of consumers use reviews for their online purchases, with 86% considering them to be an important part of their purchase journey. 82% of consumers specifically seek out negative reviews when making a purchase. Purchase likelihood peaks when the average star rating of a product is between 4.2 and 4.5 stars on a 5-star scale. Let's consider that again. A product with a 4.2 star rating sells better than one with a perfect 5. Inherently, this makes sense. Our brains are wired to resist being sold to, and so this is an understandable defense mechanism. It also leads to the single truth at the heart of this book. Transparency sells better than perfection. We have been taught to sell perfection, but perfection does not sell. To win in this digital era, where feedback is all around us and easy to come by, we need to adjust how we sell to optimize for the way buyers buy. The transparency sale is about giving people all of the information the brain requires to feel confident about making a decision. It's about framing our solutions as a 4.2 to 4.5 and no longer positioning as though we're a perfect 5.0. It's about understanding how feelings and emotions influence the decisions buyers make. It's about how your potential prospects and buyers make the majority of their decisions subconsciously. Understanding that the selling cycle isn't just about getting your buyers to make one decision to buy from you. The selling cycle requires a recognition that the buyer is making hundreds or even thousands of subconscious micro decisions. How would I make leading with unexpected honesty, sharing vulnerabilities, and optimizing every interaction based on how the brain engages and makes decisions work?
There, which is around this idea of transparency and this amazing finding, I think, that actually perfection turns people off. We've seen it so much, it's almost become kind of a bit repulsive. Like, we don't want the the perfect 5-star experience anymore. We want businesses and we want people to tell us their challenges. We want to know that, there's been some struggle, and we want to know that there's been some pain in the journey, I guess. So without that, it's just unbelievable. It's not real. It's beyond, it's just not human. It's not something we can understand. So, and I think that's a really interesting mindset shift that doesn't just relate to, sales. It relates absolutely to the content that we're writing on social media. Because somewhere along the line in business school, we were taught that perfection is where we should set the bar. We were diligently sharing posts that, we should share our achievements and share our 5-star reviews and share when it's awesome and, awesome, positive, great. But actually, people want to see the struggle. They want to see the challenge. And there's, that's where connections are made. So I guess that's the gist of what this is about tonight. It's kind of encouraging you to maybe flip the mindset to one of, a little bit more transparent, a little bit more, raw and real. And through doing that, finding new connections. As I was reflecting on this, it was funny to think back to where, I guess, my LinkedIn journey started when I started my business back in 2016. And I wrote this post, which was about this experience that I had where I was, starting a new business and I was putting proposals out there and, talking to new clients, and it was all very exciting. And, I was putting all this time and effort into, pitching these amazing social media solutions and so forth. And we still do, of course, just perhaps in different ways now. You'll understand why in a second. But so basically this particular potential client shopped my proposal around to one of my competitors and actually told me about it after he'd done it. I don't know whether he wanted to get a better deal or what it was, but I was like, oh my gosh, does this happen? And I was kind of, I was definitely put out. Like I'd put all this, like I said, time and effort into creating it, and that's my intellectual property, and you're sharing it with my competitors, and I was like, I admit initially it was a bit venti when I went on to LinkedIn, but I was like, I've just had to share this experience. And it was funny because through sharing that, and I didn't name any names, and I did end up editing it quite a bit to make it more professional. But it was amazing how many people had been through similar things, or could relate to it in some way, or had some advice, or just wanted to chat about it and get real. And it was a really interesting experience for me, because I was like, oh my gosh, here I was, I don't know, I just had it in my head that LinkedIn was all about professional achievement and so forth, and yet here I was kind of just showing that I didn't necessarily have it together as a new business owner. And through that, I created all these new connections, actually made a new client. It was a really interesting kind of turning point in the way I started using LinkedIn. And since then, that's kind of been the way I've approached not all of my communications, but I've always kind of sought to be real. To if I am sharing something about achievement or something like that, I always want to make sure people know that it was freaking hard work to get there. And we use the same approach now for our clients as well. It's a bit different when you're talking on a company level. You can't always go there in the same way, but when you're the face of your own brand and you're speaking for yourself, you can absolutely go there, and that's certainly what I encourage our clients to do. I guess from experience for myself and from others, I can definitely say this works. When COVID restrictions were announced, I was sharing about the challenges that was. The challenge of that for us as a business and for our clients, and just through that someone in my network said, hey, we should start a podcast. And so, out of that, an opportunity that I didn't necessarily expect came from that too. So, it's funny how just, being real and sharing where you're at actually more often than not opens up conversations. And I guess you kind of did it before, in the example, that was the whole point of it was, when you talk about the things that are, from your day, I don't know whether you do this at the dinner table at night, but with my partner, we always have two questions. What was the highlight of your day and what was the worst part of your day? We should probably ask it the other way around, shouldn't we? But finish on a high note. But it's a conversation opener, that's how we engage as humans, So that was, the point of the little activity earlier as well. Just by doing that, it's like it opens up the other person. It invites them to participate in where you're at. If it's about your team or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, actually, I can kind of relate to that too. We're at this more. So that's the power, I guess, of being transparent. And I guess to clarify, I'm not saying that you need to feel like you're venting. It's not about, complaining. No one wants that to be that person either. But, I am saying, it's good to be real. Does that make sense? We're kind of understanding. Cool. So the storytelling template that I'm sharing with you is just kind of going to guide us through, I guess, a framework, if you like, for using, coming from this point of view and using it to create social posts. So it's 5 steps, and I'm not sure that we'll get through all of them tonight, but if we spend more time on the first 2, I think you'll start to see how it can flow from there. So we're just going to, thanks Matt. So the first step is to identify, what you're struggling with or your challenge. So I like to, when I'm getting into content creation mode, I like to find a quiet space where I can kind of reflect and I can think about where I'm at. Go back to my mission statement, my elevator pitch, if I had one. Just go back to what my goals were sometimes for the year, or what I had intended to even do for, that period of time that I'm in, or whatever it might be, and then go, what's been a challenge for me? Obviously, COVID's probably top of mind for everyone, so it's kind of an easy one to start with. So, for me, one of the biggest challenges of that time was trying to manage the juggle of being a new mom, as well as trying to keep a business going, which was extremely challenging when businesses were closing down all over the place, trying to keep a team motivated. When I think back on that time, there's so many different challenges. But it provided a starting point for me to work from, because it was like, what? Other people are going through this too. And so that was where I would always kind of, that was where I would build my content from. Not necessarily, again, in a venti way, but just in this is where I'm at. This is, and, I invite you to be a part of this with me. So that's the first step, to identify what your challenges are. The second step is to then turn it into, I guess, a headline. So in social media, we have a microsecond to grab people's attention. So that first opening line, it's about finding something that is really going to bring people into the story that you're telling and kind of give them some expectation of what's to come. So the headline, it's easier said than done. It takes writers a long time to work out how to start a story, but it is so key. It is really the hook. It is the thing that will grab someone in and lead someone on in reading your social post. So we're not going to go too much further there for the time being. We'll talk about the other 3 points in a second. We're just going to go through a little activity and see whether that starts to kind of, I guess, whether that starts to become a bit more understanding, I guess, in what we're about to do. So there's pen and paper, if you just want to grab one and choose a couple of colours. And you don't have to share this with anyone, so if it feels too personal, you don't have to feel like you're disclosing something that's very personal. But yeah, it's just an activity to do for yourself. What's been a challenge, one challenge for this last 6 months? If you're really struggling there are some examples in the next slide, Matt. Sorry. Actually, it's the next one again. Sorry, I've not been keeping up. Yeah, actually, if you could just, I think it might be 2 on. Sorry, Matt, it's just one more. Yeah. So once you've done that, then the next step is to have a go at writing this headline. And Matt, I might get you just to flick over to the next one now. So with headlines, it's short, it's snappy, it really should be no more than 10 words. It's there's a whole ream of different techniques that you can use to make this something that is really attention grabbing. So you could start with something really controversial, about the challenge. You could really immediately, I guess, position your audience in the sense of like, what on earth is he talking about? That's one way to go about it. You could say something really obscure. You could start with a really interesting opening fact or something like that relating to the challenge that you're going through. You could start with, so this was embarrassing, or so, there's a million ways that you can open this up. But the idea is that you're trying to use this first sentence to get people's attention and hook them into your story. So you've got to give them enough that they understand what it is that you might be struggling with, but also not enough that they won't read on. So there's a few examples up there. So, you could, like I said, you could start with, so this was embarrassing, or something really controversial, which for me, if I were to come out with something like social media doesn't work, people would be like, my audience at least would be like, oh, what's changed? Do go on. Or, I can't believe it, this has happened. So, like I said, there's a million ways you could open it. Those are just some examples. You could say pineapple doesn't belong on pizza. Personally, I think that statement's true. So you can come and fight me afterwards if you'd like to. Hopefully you're starting to get this idea that this is your chance to get people's attention and to hook them into your story. This is, I guess, an approach where we're using a bit more long-form content. So we're not talking about that social media post that's just like, hey, I made an achievement here, or shout outs to a particular business or whatever it might be. We're trying to go further here. We're trying to unpack the feelings. We're trying to, like our audio excerpt was talking about, we're trying to help people to understand where we're coming from and get to that point of transparency. We're trying to get that 4.2 to 4.5 star customer review in our social content. It's easier said than done, I know, but I think it's a good challenge for us to think about, how often do we just write that post and we kind of flippantly go, I'll just throw in I don't know, like a quick grab from what I was up to or something like that today. But if we really take the time to kind of unpack, what is it that we ultimately want from our audience? We want their time. We're asking for their time. Who's got much of that these days? No one. So, we've got to make it worth their while. You want them to feel like they've come away with some sort of insight or learning or something by the time they finish with your post. So, we've got to start thinking about going a little bit further. So that's the headline challenge. So after you've written the headline, so it's not all doom and gloom. You don't have to just leave your audience with what you're struggling with right now. You'll be happy to know there is resolution. Matt, if you wouldn't mind just going to the next one. So through your caption, this is where you start to unpack it a little bit further and talk about the situation and the context and what's been happening, what you're working on. This is where you just kind of lead people a bit further, give them a bit more depth and detail into what's been happening, so that when you arrive at the next point, which is your resolution, that's where you go, okay, there's been all this challenge, but now we have arrived at this, this point of learning or this point of an outcome or something like that. So you are kind of giving people a little bit of that was interesting. You started out and I thought, maybe you're going off the rails as a business or whatever it might be, or I could see that this is really challenging for you and the team, but really interesting how you've turned that around, or whatever it might be for you. So you do want to offer some sort of resolution, or at the very least, we're still working on this, and it's going somewhere, and these are the things we're doing to move forward. So do share the resolution in some way or another, and then invite response. I think this is one that's really underutilized. Is just some sort of question at the end where it's like, have you experienced this, or, if you can relate, please comment below, or, some kind of invitation to participate in the conversation. Get specific, if it's something around team morale or team engagement, invite people to comment specifically around the thing that's most challenging to you. Awesome way to just, open up a conversation. Don't forget also about, hashtagging and tagging and all those sorts of things. They're important too. But I guess the gist of this is to challenge you, I guess, to look at your content through maybe a fresh lens, and now perhaps more than ever, there's the opportunity to do that. COVID does give us this kind of collective challenge that we're all grappling with. And now more than ever, I guess we can come from this position of, hey, this is where I'm at, would love your help with it, and people will respond. So that's my challenge, I guess, to you all. That's the framework, the content framework. Hopefully you feel like you can kind of go away and take that and apply it. I know it might seem a bit basic, I guess, but there's complexity in it, in the sense that, the approach that you're taking is, coming from that position of seeking to understand and, seeking to open up a conversation, as opposed to kind of that pushing out content that maybe doesn't invite a response. So hopefully you found that helpful. Oh, sorry. Keep going to turn my slide over. If you're stuck for ideas, I've created a blog on our website, our new website, which is 35 story ideas your audiences will love. So our website details are at the end of this prezzo, but it does just give you some starting points, I guess, to work from. If you're really struggling, I guess, to find a place of inspiration, those ideas there just might be what you're looking for. yeah, give it a test and just have a go. I guess, you can't do wrong here unless you're really coming from I guess, a place of extreme negativity or, extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, if you come at this from a place of positivity and optimism and sincere interest, I guess, in sharing with people where you're at, you really can't go wrong. Just test it, have a little go and see what sort of response you get. Like I said earlier, even the best content creators out there have good days and bad days. Don't expect to get it right the first time. Just, I guess, play with your own voice and what feels comfortable to you. Don't try and copy anyone out there because that too will sound inauthentic. So that being said, there are some excellent writers out there, content creators out there who use this approach all the time. So I'd happily share some of those accounts with you as well if you're looking for more inspo. How am I going for time? Not too bad. And on a final note, I guess just to kind of overlay that a little bit further, you've got to do something truly unexpected to really cut through the noise. And I guess this is where, social media is so crowded these days. Everyone is there to be heard, even if they're not really understanding that themselves yet. We're all kind of saying things. It's like the noisiest room you've ever walked into. You really do have to say something unique to really cut through the noise. So I guess, that applies to all of this as well, in the way that we're choosing what we're talking about and choosing the themes and in choosing the challenges and in choosing the headlines. We really do have to be challenging ourselves to stretch further, to fine-tune and master our own writing so that, increasingly more, we're getting that connection and we're getting that trust that we're ultimately looking for. So thank you. So yeah, you're welcome to get in touch. Website details, I'm sorry, that's not very clear, there. So I'll say those out for you guys. So www.fullstopsocialmedia.com.au. So that's full stop written in full, socialmedia.com.au. We might leave that up for a second or two and people are welcome to come and get my phone number. Do we have time for questions? Very quickly. Does anyone have questions, thoughts?
Yeah. Say, it's been lightning, just the first thing you said about 5 stars, because we've only been 4 weeks and everything's 5 stars. I'm like thinking, yeah, woo-hoo. We don't have anything other than 5 stars, so I'm going to have to put a couple of dodgy ones in there.
Yeah. That was really, I'd never heard that statistic before. And that to me, stood out, and I was like, I have to share that. The idea that perfection isn't the goal, that it's okay to be a 4.2.
Actually, someone say, oh, it's too good to be true, because everyone's saying it's perfect.
Yeah. It's a really interesting book to dive into more. There is far more behind it than just that. So if you're interested in digging in more, it goes into how to, for example, how to use transparency when you're talking about your services and products, how to basically turn it into a story like, this is why we chose this particular model and this approach, and we looked at X, Y, Z, and, that didn't work, and so we did this, and, it's a really interesting book, and there's so many applications to everything we do. This is just the tiniest little micro excerpt. When I was like, what part do I share? That made sense to go right there. But there's so much more to it. So I definitely encourage you to get into it if you're interested. Anyone else?
Is there any difference in reader engagement between posting it as an article or a blog post?
Yeah, Yes and no. I guess you can definitely use the same approach in an article or a blog as opposed to a post. You just get more words basically to play with in an article or blog, so you can kind of go into more detail and depth. We use blogs and articles that same way. And emails too is another applicable channel as well that this works for. So we don't do a lot of email marketing, but specialists out there definitely use this. Your headline just becomes your subject line, that hooky grab that you're trying to like lure people in to read more of your email. So yeah, definitely applicable. I tried to think what it's not applicable to. Probably TikTok, Snapchat, those social media channels. Completely different. They're entertainment channels ultimately, I guess. That's not to say there's not an element of entertainment in this too, but when you're writing and using the written word, it's a different set of tools. Thank you.